Good morning and welcome to Evolving with Soul. My name is Josette Diaz and I am a self-awareness coach for women in midlife. And on Evolving with Soul, we have conversations for growth and to express various wisdom that is out into the world so that you can gather more information to help yourself on your path, whatever that might be. And I run a beautiful community called the Art of Awareness. Now, I would like you to know it doesn't mean you have to be an artist to show up. And that's in part what we talk about here, that you show up as you are. And if you're looking to go a little deeper into your life, then you may want to check out the Art of Awareness. I have the beautiful Vasi Huntalas here with me. And Vasi is the founder of Ignite Your Soul, and she guides new and seasoned entrepreneurs to uncover their deeper purpose so they create the impact their heart and soul are calling them to make. After 15 years as a traditional coach, she was led to fully embrace, her gifts as an intuitive and artist. Through her journey, she broke free from her inner critic and pioneered an intuitive painting process that has helped hundreds of people find clarity, confidence, and a deeper connection with their true selves. So now, as a breakthrough mindset mentor, she blends intuition and creativity to help visionary leaders clear subconscious blocks fast and step into their next level success, aligned effortless and in flow with their purpose. Who doesn't want that? So I love that. Hi, Vasi. How are you this morning?
Hi, Josette. Good morning to you and to everyone who's joining us now or in the replay. We're so happy to have you here.
Yes, and I love the bright painting above you. It's so pretty. We all get to enjoy the beauty of the work that Vasi does. Vasi, what is that painting for?
So this one is authenticity, which started out, I asked a question before I painted, which was about how can we ignite our visibility? How can we be more visible in a way that's in alignment with our purpose? And so this painting came through as an answer. When it was done, I said, "What are you the energy of?" And it said, "I am authenticity." And it wasn't until later that I saw there's like a little heart, like, ooh, wait, right there. And I took my fingers and I just kind of outlined it a little bit. So, it's about how coming from our heart and speaking our truth is really individual to each one of us. And so that authenticity allows us to shine through our truth, shine our light through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Today it's very fitting for what we're going to be talking about today. So today, everyone, we're going to be talking about cultivating resilience and self-mastery through art. And it's not all about art, yet art is always a tool that can be the bridge. That's how I see it. And we were kind of chatting a little bit before we got started, and we were speaking about resilience. And I was asking Vasi if she thought that resilience is something that you can build on. Can we increase our resilience? And I was asking this question because it was something I was thinking about when I was pondering our topic for today. And I remember seeing a study that I'm paraphrasing completely. So that alludes to the fact that you may not be able to increase your resilience long standing or in a sense of longevity, that you will always go back to a certain baseline. I've read studies about that with self-esteem too. You come into the world with a certain amount of self-esteem that's developed in your early stages, and then that's pretty much where your self-esteem will kind of like have a baseline. It can go up and down. It will always come kind of back to that baseline. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I kind of don't believe that. And so I'd like to know your opinion. Do you think that you can increase resilience? And have you ever used art to help you increase that resilience?
Mm. I think absolutely we can increase our resilience. I'm with you there, Josette. I don't
Mhm.
agree with that survey or that information
Yeah,
because
this
we're
one
so
study.
dynamic. You
Yeah.
know, we're always evolving and always adapting as we go through our life, different cycles, different
Mhm.
seasons, different stages. We learn things, we grow.
Yeah.
We maybe may go down and hit a low point, but we bounce up. Um, if we're focused on growth, if we're growth minded. And so I think that's the caveat there is
Mhm.
if we can we increase our resiliency? Absolutely. If we're willing to stretch and grow outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because and you're right, it's like it's where we get comfortable. I notice that when you are going through any kind of change, you will, hit a certain marker, right? Where
Right.
you have to get a little comfortable with that stretch. And once you've gotten comfortable with that stretch, you sometimes can bounce back down. 'Cause
Mhm.
then you think, "Oh, I've got this," and then those little insidious habits and patterns can creep their way in, and you don't recognize that they're kinda taking over and shifting you backwards in a way, and it's not that you're necessarily going backwards, it just means that this is how I see it, that your space of vulnerability is maybe a little open, and so you then kinda bring yourself back to a place that's even more comfortable where you know how to handle everything that comes your way.
Yeah.
And so it takes a certain amount of awareness and fortitude and focus to keep, moving into that next stretch for yourself to where that becomes the next level of comfort.
Yes, and that next
You want
level of
your thoughts on
comfort.
that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, and that next level of comfort that you're talking about, it all depends the degree to which we're listening to the stories about ourselves, right?
Right,
From
yeah,
ourselves, right?
yes.
It's like, what is that voice, whatever you call it, ego mind, inner critic, inner
Mhm.
judge, whatever it is, what is that voice saying? Is that voice saying, "Oh, don't even try to get back up because you're
Yeah,
not gonna make it," right? Or, "Don't try that again
yeah.
or you'll be disappointed,"
Mhm,
or, "Who do you think you are?" Right? Like, we
mhm,
know those voices. Those are the voices
mm.
of the small self, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the part that I think that well, and the other thing that I think is interesting is, in my art of awareness community last week, we did our first art circle for the month, and we are working in the month of March on breaking barriers, and so, that can look like a variety of different things, and one of in the exercise, many of the women, came to a place of where the barriers had to do with their inner child.
Mhm.
And so often, I find when I'm working with my clients that there is somewhere in their pattern, their inner child is showing up and running the show. And so that is something that, I think can really bring you back down to that lower baseline that I'm just using that as a term to express it, that, that your inner child will show up during the pattern or during the, engagement of whatever is happening in the world that you're managing and will start to assert uh, its behavior and viewpoint, and you're not really aware that that's what's going on. Let me see, let me give you an example of that. I have a client that, that when she's disappointed, she her inner 14-year-old shows up, and the inner 14-year-old sabotages various areas with a 14-year-old's attitude. I mean, we all can recognize that, right? And it's not that she's immature. That's not the point here. Yet we have certain behaviors that sometimes will show up in our adult lives that are reminiscent of our younger version of ourselves that then sabotage the things that we as adults are working towards shifting because that doesn't work for us anymore. And if we miss the fact that we have this going on, then it's so easy to fall back. And I think that that's something that can affect your resilience if we aren't aware that we are operating or allowing a different part of us to operate primarily in our adult situations. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the key to self resiliency is self awareness to a
Mm,
large degree. The degree to which we're aware of what part is leading us
yeah,
at any
yeah.
time. And when I work with entrepreneurs, one of the things is looking at, if you're making a decision, what part of
Mhm.
you is making that decision,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And just to bring that awareness, is it the part of me that, like you said, the 14-year-old or the rebellious, teen or preteen, or the young child who felt scared,
Mhm.
um, and judged, and now in front of audiences, or the thought of going to speak is absolutely terrifying, or being
Right?
visible,
Yeah.
and we come back to this authenticity,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because when we're aware of ourselves, we're aware of our authentic selves, our true selves. And
Mhm.
with that, it's a whole different part of ourselves that's operating.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, we should look at, not should, but I just invite people to look at that piece,
Yes.
is to bring that awareness if you're in that place and maybe something's happened, maybe there's been a change, because change is one of the biggest triggers
That's
for
true.
us of where those different parts of ourselves come in.
Yeah.
And really, those parts of ourselves are seeking wholeness, integration.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
seeking recognition, but that
Mm.
doesn't mean that we stay in that place with
Right.
them and we completely agree. It's like, no, we want to bring them up. That's where I
Yeah.
love art, because art can shift our frequency. Art
Yes.
is empowering, right?
Mhm.
Art is an expression of who we really are. And so when we use art as a tool for authenticity, then we're tapped into that bigger part of ourselves. And then the small part of ourselves feel held in that space, which
Mhm.
is a beautiful way to experience um, supporting ourselves and
Yeah.
uplifting ourselves and encouraging ourselves.
I love that. When you said "held," I just kind of my whole body just went, "Ooh." That's so nice. Because and I can't help but focus in on the heart behind you in your painting
Mm,
and how it's cradled,
mm,
being held, like what you were just saying, and you're so right about that. I think that, we're all seeking to be our authentic true selves.
mm.
But no matter what we call it, no matter what the language is that we use different languaging. Not everyone's gonna use authentic or true self. Yet, everyone wants to feel at home or be themselves, the best version of who they are. I've never met anyone that said they didn't. So,
Right. Your best self. That's
yeah,
another
the
way,
best
right? To talk
self,
about it. I
yeah.
want to be my best self. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that does mean that there are parts of us that we need to embrace. Like you were saying, the small self wants to be held. And when we speak about, different using art to bring us to that next level of operation, and in a higher sense that you are seeing things more clearly. I find when I do art that, I'm able to clarify whatever it is that I'm focused on in the moment.
Mm,
And it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be anything, and I think that I get the most joy when I'm finger painting because it's so tactile and it just
Mhm.
feels really good, and I can get different colors and shapes that I can't do when I use a tool, and I know you've spoken about this too, that very rarely are you using paintbrushes.
Mhm. Right.
And, um and I think that, if we can bring ourselves to, allow ourselves to play, and it doesn't have to be with paint, and it doesn't have to be with anything else that is specific. Like, I think of art in so many ways. Like, even when I'm doing dishes, which sounds weird.
Yeah.
Yet, if I'm actually, it's in the rhythm, to me, that's artistic, it's creative, it doesn't have to look like you think it should look or
Mm.
what you've been taught how it looks and told how it looks. Sometimes it takes a little bit of imagination in everything you do to allow yourself to open up to that creativity.
And creativity is an exploration, right?
Mhm,
And
yeah,
so a lot of times when we use the word art, people think of an end product, right? Like
yes,
I'm creating this end product. Whereas
yeah,
if we use creativity, it's like
mhm,
bring that energy to anything we're doing, like you said, with
yeah,
kids or doing dishes, or it could be cooking, or it could be gardening. It could be any of those things where we're bringing our unique expression. And so maybe that's
yeah,
another word we're going to bring into the conversation here is uniqueness.
mhm.
Or
Yeah, I
maybe
love that.
opposite some of the other words. It's like when you allow yourself to be creative,
Mhm.
your uniqueness is having an expression. And it doesn't
Yeah,
need to be anything we're seeking or
right.
pursuing. It's we're expressing what's already there within us.
Yes,
And
yes.
how could that not help bring a sense of groundedness in ourselves? And
Mhm.
to me, that self-reliance is about how can I depend on myself? How can I
Mm.
be responsible, committed, self-loving to myself?
Mhm.
So that's I'd love us to explore self-resiliency in that
Yes.
context.
Yes, I love that because, just what you said simply is the key to building the resilience. The more that you dive into loving yourself and relying on yourself, the more resiliency threshold you build. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a balance with
Mhm.
self-resiliency that seems important to bring into the conversation. And that's like, yes, it's important to be self-reliant and to develop that awareness within ourselves.
Mhm.
And the balance of support, right?
Mhm.
So when do
Mhm.
you look for others? So self-reliance, sometimes being self-reliant means reaching out for support as
Yeah,
well.
that's right. Yes, it doesn't mean you do it all alone. I mean, so often I think you have to partner with a community
Yeah,
and, let people know what you need.
exactly. Yeah. And so when we go through changes, and
Mm,
I know a lot of us are going through changes now in many areas of our lives. The world is changing. We're
yeah.
changing with it. It's how can we be self-reliant and actually evolve and grow
Mm,
during these times of change? How can we use these changes to open ourselves to more of our unique self-expression? And I think that's where creativity comes in
mhm.
because we start with a blank page or
Yeah,
whatever we're doing, right?
yeah,
We're doing
yeah,
something out of thin air. I'm just going to use painting as an example here.
right.
And then we let ourselves be guided, let
Mhm.
ourselves intuitively choose colors, choose shapes, trust what's coming through. And that trust in the creative process helps us also trust ourselves
Mhm.
to be self
Mhm.
reliant. Like, yes, I can figure this out. Yes, I can get through this. Yes, I will have the answer when I need to.
Mm,
And so that becomes like this affirming, experience that we have.
right.
And that's, I think, the joy of creativity is it takes us into this realm where we're in relationship with ourselves in a
Yes.
different way, right?
It's so true. I mean, I'm thinking about I started painting every day or coloring or doing something. And so, what I find when I practice this is that it does really increase how you see yourself in a positive way, because you're right. It's like I can choose the shapes and trust myself and know that it's going to be what it's meant to be in the moment. And then you can get some very unique insight just by doing the process alone, and that does increase and open that door of the self-trust, I think, is such a big deal. So, I think so often we don't trust ourselves in certain tiny areas. Like, we go, "Oh, I always kinda mess that up. I'm not too sure," and so it does increase your ability to, recognize that you are trustworthy.
Mhm.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. That trustworthiness is about, can I depend on myself?
Mhm,
Can I look to
mhm.
myself for answers?
Yeah.
Can I look at things from a different perspective
Mhm.
and have an understanding that comes from a part of myself that isn't in the muck, isn't
Mm.
in the disappointment or the
Yeah.
regret or whatever the experience is, isn't telling a story of, you'll never recover from this. Like, that when we say that to ourselves, it is so not true.
Mhm.
It is so not true. And what I have found doing art is, even if I'm at a point where I'm pushing against something, like, ugh, like I did a painting this weekend, intuitive painting,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh God, what is going on in this one area? It's just like, no matter what color I put down, it wasn't, the whole wasn't blending. It wasn't
Yeah.
harmonious.
Yeah.
It just wasn't integrated. And then I looked at that, and in fact, I'm looking at it right now. It's across the room. I put it up and I went, okay, maybe in this moment, I'm not going to figure it out, but I
Yeah.
will. And
Right.
I think that's what's important to tell ourselves. Is
Yeah.
like, maybe in this moment, I don't have the answer.
Mhm.
I know myself to be creative, resourceful, you know,
Right.
um, a whole adaptable, a whole bunch of other things. And I know that I will know when it's time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And just setting that aside. And I came back to the other day and I knew exactly what needed to be there and what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so when we tell ourselves, you'll never get through this, or you don't know, or it'll never get
Mhm.
better, or you've messed up, there's no coming back, all those things are coming from that small self that's not our authentic self. And
Mhm.
sometimes we just have to create an energy shift there,
Yeah.
whatever that is. Let go for a walk, do something that brings us joy, shift to another creative activity, maybe. And that's
Mhm.
just enough where our energy will shift and change, and
Yeah.
more possibility focused place as opposed to a pessimistic place.
Yes. It reminds me of when you've spoken before about turning the painting a different way, to see it
Yeah.
differently. So, like,
Mhm.
shifting your perspective, trying something else does bring in a whole new way to relate, see things, etcetera. And I love that you brought up, like, that, even when you're creating art, whether it's a painting or something else, there's gonna be pieces that feel lumpy or bumpy, and you're not sure why. Like, I did one the other day that are colors that I wouldn't normally choose, and I keep looking at it going, "What is up with this?" Because this is different. And I started to realize that, sometimes in those places where our shadows come in, and when we talk about shadows, it's the part of you that, you might consider are your negative attributes, or the places where you know that you do something and you feel like, "Oh, it's not really very nice, but, that's where I'm at." And, so the thing I wanna say about that, though, is that in the shadow is the gift. And so it's important to look at the shadow and to, sit with it, invite it in, learn about it, because there is something that is asking for your attention, that you can shift how you see, whatever it is, and bring it into a positive place so that that shadow becomes the gift, because
Mhm.
it truly is in those areas, that's where our deepest growth can be, and I think that that also is a resilience building, um, activity, is by
Mhm.
looking at those areas. Um, it might sound scary to some people, so I don't want to, like, express that it's scary. It really is a joyous moment. The minute that we are afraid of something, what if it did happen? Can you allow it to sit with you
Mhm.
and be friendly with it and see what it's asking you to, or what the fear is showing you in some way about yourself? I think that's also another way of building your resilience is, allowing the uncomfortableness to sit with you and, "Come hang out with me." "Yeah, you're welcome. Come on in."
Yeah.
Because if in that moment, it's a heck of a lot less scary.
Yeah, for sure. That shadow piece that you brought up, it's such a we come into it with an assumption,
Mhm.
like, I have to brace myself, or this is gonna be hard, or I
Yeah.
don't wanna see it, or I'm not capable or equipped enough
Mm.
to address this
Mhm.
shadow or to
Yeah.
explore it, which makes it all the more, like, entrenched.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I there's been so many times, and I know I have a good example here, it may come a little later, where I've been up against something, and so I'll take the painting from last weekend.
Mhm.
There was a piece that wasn't working, like I said, it wasn't harmonious. Well, when
Yeah.
I actually tuned into that, what it was the world, a lot of the chaos that's going on right now.
Mhm.
That wasn't intended to be integrated into the painting.
Right, yeah.
It really wasn't. And it was about trusting that whatever was happening didn't need to impact my own centeredness in myself or
Yes.
my own connection with myself. And so when we go into the shadow, it's like, okay, how confident am I? How
Mhm.
connected am I to
Mhm.
that part of myself
Mm.
that really knows what's true and real for myself?
Mhm.
And the shadow is something that is not something to be afraid of.
Right.
It's something to be present with.
Mhm.
And that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah.
It's like if you put your awareness on it, you're gonna be in the present moment. You're gonna have a different understanding of it. And you're
Mhm.
also, and I wanna use the word acceptance, not that
Yeah.
it's okay, but
Right.
that you're not pushing it away. And so what happens with our energy when we're just accepting something and being aware of it, it
Mhm.
ceases to lose its power over us. And
Yes.
that's the most important thing with the shadow is that, or anything that's happening, is that it's not overpowering us, that we rise up, that we're able to say, I'm bigger than this, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And I can see now what this is
Yes.
about. And that, like you said, that's all that it's doing. It's getting our attention for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. And I think that what the other thing that you brought up about, the painting, that, it's interesting that that showed up in your painting, that in this, and it wasn't feeling harmonious because it doesn't feel harmonious. For a lot
Mhm.
of people, it doesn't. And, it does, and the one thing you said that really I wanna just kind of, like, highlight a little more is how you said that it doesn't have to disrupt your center.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important for us to pay attention to, that each day that we remain centered in our, in the center of who we are and what we believe about how we want to be in the world and
Mhm.
how we want to see the world around us. I think that's so important to stay centered in that right now, especially if you don't really love what's happening in the world. So,
Right.
not to go down that track, I just think that it is important, though, to point out, And I love that you said that.
Yeah, it's about what we're creating
Mhm.
with our choices, what
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
creating with our life, what we're creating with our energy,
Yeah, much
right?
better said,
And
yeah.
so are we letting our energy just kind of go out to these things and be distracted, right?
Yeah.
Or are we keeping our energy centered within ourselves, our
Mhm.
vision, our goals, our values, our purpose
Mhm.
in life, our purpose in this moment?
Mhm.
And so I think that's the most effective way, and I'm going to say efficient too, effective and efficient
Yeah.
way to be self-reliant is to have
Yes.
that connection with ourselves, that deeper connection.
I agree. So, to wrap it all up,
Mhm.
what would you say is, the takeaways for building resiliency in challenging times? And the practice of self-mastery is really, peeling back the layers, one at a time and consistently building. So that's the self-mastery, and that's what we've been talking about. So how would you wrap up resiliency, um, that you feel kind of brings it all together into one nice little.
So self resiliency
Mhm.
is the act of deeply connecting with
Mm.
ourselves in a way that lifts us up, in a way that connects us to more of ourselves, in a way that allows us to be who we've always been.
Mm.
And that's the most, I'll say it again, effective and efficient way to be self
Yeah,
reliant
yeah.
is to have that groundedness, that centeredness within ourselves, and to be committed to that no matter what
Mhm.
happens around us. And that's the other piece in terms of, wrapping up everything we've been saying is that what's going on out there
Mhm.
doesn't need to impose itself on your experience,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, and as I say that, I can feel like even some resistance around that. But what do you mean this will happen this to me and this affects my life? And that's
Yeah.
true. And then I just invite you to use creativity, use art as a way to shifting the energy around that so that you come back from being out here to here, right?
Mhm.
And, here's the heart. We'll go
Yeah,
back to the heart, our
yeah.
authentic self. Um, and that's where your response might be completely different than someone else's response. And
Right.
trust that. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and she's like, here's how I respond to something, or here's how I felt guided. And it's like, yes, this is the time for us to trust that. There has
Yes.
never been more distraction, more noise,
Mhm.
more chaos around us. So let's use that as an opportunity to be self reliant and balance that with support with others
Right.
too,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like resiliency to me is that building the strength of like a rubber band, that it is meant to be stretched, it is meant to grow, it is meant to hold things in place as you move forward. And whenever you feel like you're having to shift outside of what you're comfortable with, that's what the resiliency rubber band is for. It keeps you held as it stretches out and out, and as you build it, it gets stronger, it can stretch larger, and that at the what you just said, I'm gonna repeat it, at the center of it is you, and at the center is that authentic heart space, just like
Mhm.
the beautiful painting that Vasi
Mhm.
has, painted that's above her.
Mhm. And interestingly, I'm getting this image of a tree. And I
Mhm.
know we started before talking about trees before we went live. And so self resiliency are our roots. Think of it
Yeah.
that way,
Oh, that's
right?
good. Yeah.
And over the years, as trees grow, the roots go down deeper. They might go
Mhm.
wider, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that allows the tree to continue to grow through all the different seasons. So let's
Mhm.
also think of our self-resiliency as our roots going down.
Mhm.
And then we're drawing up the resources,
Right.
the intuition, the
Yes.
inspiration, the knowledge, the wisdom, whatever it is, to help us keep growing and strengthening ourselves.
Right. Because the resiliency isn't just about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also community.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed our conversation today and took away some wonderful moments of wisdom. And we will be back next week. Looking forward to it. So, all of you have a wonderful week. Vasi offers a free session, and that information is in the description. And I also offer the art of awareness. If you're interested in expanding in that way, please come and join us. Vasi, is there anything else that you would like to end with today?
Oh, just an invitation for everyone to take some time today to connect with yourself in
Mm,
some way. And if you can do it in a creative way, all the more.
yeah.
And just nurture that creative part of yourself because we all have it. We're all master creators.
Mm,
And when we're connected to that part of ourself, it brings so much joy and purpose and impact as well.
yeah. So well said, Vasi. Thank you.
Thank you, Josette.
Thank you, everybody.